Good morning. Grace to you and peace from the God who creates and redeems and sustains us. Welcome to the First Presbyterian Church of Lansdowne. We are glad that you are all here for us on this very special and historic day in the life of this congregation. A couple of announcements and then we will begin. Our liturgist today is Annabelle Lyons. Direcsa is running Children's Church. Chris Bellis and Harry Rickards are doing the AV desk. And our counters today are Harry and Bonnie, so thank you to everybody who helps make this worship service run so smoothly. If you were worshiping with us on Zoom this morning, we want to welcome you as well. If you would like to, you can put your prayer requests into the chat window so that we can have those prayer requests this week. Normally, we would have Bible study after worship, but we are not going to do that today because we have a very large reception planned for after worship today, honoring Pastor Nancy. And so after worship, we're inviting everybody over to Westminster Hall, which is directly behind the sanctuary here. You can go out this door, under the breezeway, and then right up into that door, and that'll get you right there. But if you'd like to join Bible studies any other time that we normally have them, it's 11:30 after worship on Sunday in person, or Thursday evenings at 7:30 on Zoom, and the links to that are in the Chimes newsletter that goes out by email every week. The food cupboard request for January is soup, so thank you for those who have been able to donate for that. And then for February, going into February, it's canned vegetables. The donation bin is in the vestibule to Westminster Hall. A reminder that we are having a giant repurpose shop sale on February 10th. That is just a couple of weeks away. That's going to be in Irwin Hall. So if you are able to help with that, please talk with Carmela or with Margaret, and they will get you something to do, I am sure. Jack's not here right now, so I'll make this announcement. A couple of us have been participating in the Peace Vigil at Senator John Fetterman's office on Fridays at 12:15 down in Old City at the U.S. Customs House. If anybody would like to join us with that, you're more than welcome to do so. It's 12:15 to 1:15 outside of the Customs office, essentially asking and praying for a ceasefire to the hostilities in the Middle East. And if you have any questions about that, you can talk to me or you can talk to Jack Organ. We've been at those for the last couple weeks now. Next week in the Chimes, we're starting a new section, so be sure to pay attention for that. It's called In the Community, which is basically if you have something going on and you would like us to know about it, to be a part of it, this is a place where you can put that into the newsletter so that we all know what's going on. Say you've got somebody in a musical or a play or a performance, something like that, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, then that will be a great place for us to know about it so that we can come and support members of the congregation who are doing things out in the community. All right. If you're visiting with us this morning, we want to say welcome. We are glad that you are here. If you would like for us to have your contact information, there should be a blue sheet in the back of the pew, and you can put your contact information there so that we can have that and get in contact with you if you would like us to. Finally, just a reminder again to join us in Westminster Hall after worship today to honor our beloved former pastor, Reverend Dr. Nancy Timothy. I don't know if you've seen this picture that we have on the bulletin or on the announcements.
Yes. Thank you, Bill.
Did you see it? Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure you saw that. All right. Those are all the announcements that we have this morning. Let us begin with worship.
Good morning. Please join me in the call to worship. Hallelujah! I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. Great are your works, O Lord, pondered by all who delight in them. Majesty and splendor mark your deeds, and your righteousness endures forever. You cause your wonders to be remembered. You are gracious and full of compassion. Let us pray. Holy God, we gather this morning in the sure hope of your presence among us. This day, as we worship, we also give thanks and praise for the 19 years of ministry of the Reverend Nancy Timothy amongst us. As we worship in prayer, song, and meditation, may her legacy and example continue to be at work among us today and in the days to come. Amen.
Friends, Jesus calls us to enter the joy of discipleship, the joy of following in his way, but sin clings closely, and we struggle to respond fully to Christ's invitation. So let us seek God's forgiveness so that we may know more deeply the joy that God intends for us. Let us pray together our prayer of confession. Merciful God, in Jesus we have seen your glory, yet our sinfulness often blocks out the light of Christ. We are quick to accuse and slow to confess. We find faults easily in others while ignoring our own shortcomings. We have squandered your gifts. We have turned from your ways. We have ignored your word. Have mercy on us, compassionate God. Pour out your Holy Spirit on our sinful lives. Wash us with your love and cleanse us with your grace, that day by day we might move closer to the people you be. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Relentlessly, God seeks us out with abundant grace and boundless mercy. This is good news. In Jesus Christ, we are forgiven.
Let us pray. Gracious God, illumine these words by your Spirit, that we might hear what you would have us hear and be who you would have us be, for the sake of Jesus Christ, the world made flesh. Amen. Today's first scripture reading comes from the book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 21 to 28. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, he entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded by his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Just then, there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent and come out of him." Oops. And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Will the children please come forward for the youth chat? Contrary to popular opinion, I did not bring Monopoly in case the sermon gets boring. Brayden, I need you to come up and help me with this. Where's my grandson, Brayden? Here we come. You can bring all the grandkids if you want. Oh, good. I'm just going to have to embarrass him because I can't help myself. I'm sorry, Jonathan. When you installed me here as pastor, the picture on the front of the bulletin cover is Jonathan, my arms. Stand up, Jonathan. I can't get him in my arms anymore. Are you taller than your dad? Are you taller than Uncle Scott? Okay, you've got it in the family, so. All right. Brayden, you and I used to play this game all the time. Do you remember? Okay, not really, okay. It's Monopoly Junior. We used to love to play it. But one of the things we discovered early on is, help me out, guys. Do you see a rule book in there? No rules. So we didn't always know what the rules were, did we? We had a board, and we knew we were supposed to go around it. We had hotels and houses, but we weren't really sure of what was a house and what was a hotel and what was some other things too. So how do I figure out what to do? Do you remember? I think most of the time I let you make the rules, and I let you make the rules because I love you. On the other hand, the rule book doesn't tell us certain things like which person gets which car to go around the board on. And you almost always let me choose the color of car I wanted. Why did you do that? You did that because you love me. There are rules in life, You have rules in school, you have rules in your family, you have rules at home, right? In the community, there are even rules at church. Does Mr. Rexa have children's church rules? Yes, okay. There are always rules. But sometimes we forget the rules or don't know the rules. And you know what? Sometimes, like Braden and me, we would toss out the rules because we love each other. That's what Paul is saying. Paul sent a letter to the church at Corinth in today's lectionary reading. Now, they didn't have email back then, so that's why he sent a letter. And it wasn't like a letter we have from the U.S. Post Office, but he sent a letter back, and he said, listen, forget the rules. You all think you're big know-it-alls and you know everything, but rules don't always matter. What matters is being loving. He said, knowledge puffs up, love builds up. So whether it's in your family, or whether it's at school or at church, wherever you are, Jesus tells us what Paul tells us. We act with love. Love builds up. Love is more important than rules. We always ask ourselves, what's the loving thing to do? Now you've heard the whole adult sermon for today, so you guys get to go to children's church, but let's pray first. Thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
That you love us.
That you love us.
Thank you especially.
Thank you especially.
That you love each one of us.
That you love each one of us.
Help us to be more loving.
Help us to be more loving.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Rex is going to
Before you guys go to children's church, can we just get, if you were baptized by Nancy, can you raise your hand or stand up? Moira, go ahead.
Wow. And even in the back, okay. Sheesh. Sorry. You need a Bible.
Our second scripture reading this morning comes from the 8th chapter of Paul's first letter to the church in Corinth. Listen now for the word of the Lord. Now concerning food sacrificed to idols, we know that all of us possess knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. Anyone who claims to know something does not yet have the necessary knowledge, but anyone who loves God is known by him. Hence, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that no idol in the world really exists, and that there is no God but one. Indeed, even though there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as in fact there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and for whom we exist, and one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and through whom we exist. It is not everyone, however, who has this knowledge, since some have become so accustomed to idols until now. They still think of the food they eat as food offered to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. Food will not bring us close to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. But take care that this liberty of yours, does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. For if others see you, who possess knowledge, eating in the temple of an idol, might they not, since their conscience is weak, be encouraged to the point of eating food sacrificed to idols? So by your knowledge, the weak brother or sister for whom Christ died is destroyed. But when you thus sin against brothers and sisters and wound their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food is a cause of their failing, I will never eat meat again, so that I may not cause one of them to fall. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
I love a good party. You know, I love a good party. So I was thinking, Jonathan, after the reception, the luncheon, the party down in Irwin Hall this afternoon, maybe we could find a way to continue the party. So let's say I rent the Temple of Apollo, the Temple of Zeus in Corinth. We can go be part of their celebration and their festivities. We can watch them kill the bull that they're going to sacrifice to Zeus or to Apollo. We can, maybe even drip some of the blood on ourselves from the bull so that we're filled with the spirit of Apollo and Zeus. But if that grosses you out, don't worry. Just eating the meat of the bull sacrificed to the idols, that'll fill us with their spirit, right? You know, that's tongue-in-cheek. You know that. But this is a very real dilemma that the early Christian church in Corinth, in Greece, Corinth, had to face. What to do if they were invited to the temple of Zeus or Apollo or Aphrodite or Venus, or it was a polytheistic culture, so there were temples everywhere. And almost all of the friends and neighbors and, yes, families of the early Christians went to those temples. So if they were going to be part of the community that celebrated much of anything, that's where it happened. The early Christians in Corinth were a very small, and Bible scholars tell us, very poor group of folks. They didn't even have their own church. They met in a house. So when they got invited to a celebration, it was great. Not only was it one of the few times they got a decent meal and got to eat meat, but they got to hang out with the people they loved and have a good time with the festivities. What's more, it gave them an opportunity to proselytize a bit. They could tell folks about the love of Jesus. So, there were lots of good reasons to go to the temple of Apollo or Zeus or whatever. But there were those in the church at Corinth that said, oh no, it's a sin. It's an awful thing to eat steer sacrificed to a pagan god. It's a terrible thing to let that meat that has been sacrificed to a false god come into your body and fill your stomach and your body. No, they said, don't do it. Can't do that. What to do? I mean, on the one hand, a good meal and a fun time. On the other hand, was it an okay thing to do? It was a little bit of the dilemma that the early Presbyterians, the Calvinists, faced when they fled to this country in the 1700s. They were told that they needed to stay out of places that served alcohol. And so Puritans, Presbyterians, got a reputation for being a little pious, a little stuck up, a little holier than thou, a little elitist. Not Lansdowne, but that reputation has carried through to many places today where Presbyterians are believed to be, well, a little pious. We missed a lot of opportunities to share God's love in those days, and probably with the early church. Anyway, those folks in the early church at Corinth couldn't figure out what to do, so they wrote to their founding pastor. They say, Paul, who's right? Now notice they don't forward it with, oh, what should we do? Mostly they're going to want to say, listen, Paul, tell him he's wrong and I'm right. Tell him he's wrong and I'm right. Paul, just tell me I'm right. So Paul writes back. And after one sentence introduction, he moves to the heart, the core of the theology of the thing. He says, now listen, guys, you get that there's only one God. The God of the universe, our creator, our loving God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's the only God there is. Any God that's called, anything that's called God, whether it be Apollo, Venus, Aphrodite, they're not real gods. To eat meat sacrificed to them is like eating meat sacrificed to a rock. No big deal. It's nothing. What's more, Paul says, you know that God's love has filled your being. God's essence fills all of your spirit. You have nothing to fear. Go ahead, Paul says. There is no unclean food. Go ahead. Eat anything you want. But, there's always a but with Paul, isn't there? But, Paul says, you guys are pretty secure in your faith. But if you think you're gonna make someone stray, someone whose faith isn't as strong as yours, or if you think that there's someone who might be considering becoming a Christian and if they see you eating meat sacrificed to an idol, that'll make them move away. If you think any food you eat is going to cause harm to another or hurt the faith of another, don't do it. Don't do it because you want to act in love. Don't do it because your sisters and brothers who may be weaker in their faith than you need your love to help them. There are limits imposed by love, aren't there? This church, when you serve communion, use grape juice because we don't want to exclude anyone who might have a problem with alcohol. There are limits imposed by love in marriages, too. If Jonathan's doing counseling in the office and, I don't know who, Taylor Swift, if she decides to kick the Kelseys aside.
Go on.
Okay, if Taylor Swift comes for counseling, he ought to give her counseling. Do the best he can do, right? I mean, help her along. But if Taylor Swift says to you, Jonathan, how about we go off for a week to Bermuda? Jonathan says no, because he loves Allison. And she'd kill you. And she'd kill you, but never mind. There are things we do, limits we impose on ourselves because we love other people. It's the same way with our children. Come on, all of you parents have sacrificed for your children because you love them. In my early days, you guys got me at a good time. You really did. My kids were all grown and out of the house. But while my kids were growing up and I was in ministry, I had a very strict rule. I would only work one night a week. If you needed me for a meeting, you better make sure you scheduled it. Because I wanted to have dinner with my kids. I wanted to go to my kids' soccer games and baseball games, and oh yes, God hope there was that one awful year of wrestling matches, but we won't go there, right? I did that because I love my kids. My grandkids are here this morning, not because they want to be here, trust me. Wouldn't you all rather be home in bed asleep? Never mind. But they're here because they love me. There are things we give up because we love each other. There are limits imposed by love. Now, with that in mind, let's look again at the church in Corinth. I just said to you, polytheistic, small, poor, in a huge urbane setting, metropolitan community. They, in this letter, are fighting about food, but they fought about everything. They've been called the disagreeable church. They couldn't agree on much of anything from the Lord's Supper to marriage to you name it. They really struggled. And so what Paul is trying to say to them has less to do with food, that it has to do with being community, and that is sacrifice for love. You limit yourself because of love. Love for others has us impose limits upon ourselves. Now, that's not to say that there won't be conflicts. There always are. There won't be disagreements. There always are in marriages, in families, and in churches. What Paul says, the last thing he says, the last verse of chapter 8 is, I would rather never eat meat again than cause harm to someone else. That's our model for living in community and family and church and marriage. There are limits we impose. Do you remember the old film Babette's Feast? It was about a woman who was a refugee. Her husband, her child had been killed, and she was fleeing for life. She was taken in by a pastor and his 2 adult daughters who were pretty pious and pietistic, and the church community was not a nice community, but she came there. They made her the cook, and they told her, this is what you cook. You cook thin gruel and very bland stuff all the time. What they did not know was Babette, the refugee, was a famous, maybe the most famous cook in all of France. I mean, an incredible chef. But she did it their way. After a long time, they kind of got to like each other. And after an even longer time, Babette comes to learn that she's won the lottery in France. She's gotten a pretty big sum of money. And she decides what she wants to do is throw a feast for all the folks in the church. So for a week or so, the church people watch quail and caviar and fine wine come to their doorstep. And the day of the feast comes. The church gathers and they say, listen, just because we love Babette, we'll let her do this, but we're not going to enjoy it. Take a bite or two, and then, it's not for us. We will not like this at all. Well, they start eating, and they start drinking, and pretty soon they discover that this is a pretty wonderful thing. They decide to let go of the rules because of their love of Babette. Babette gave everything, her entire fortune, for them because of love. This community that had been fractured and broken and bickering, once they came together in love, found that it was a great place to be. Dear friends, we may not be arguing about food here in the Presbyterian denomination, but we don't agree on everything. Some of you know how I feel about the NRA. You know how I feel about the ACLU. We don't always agree. We don't, some of you are going to support the Ravens and some the Chiefs this afternoon. We don't agree on sports or politics or many things. But Paul gives us a model of how to handle all of the disagreements, any of the disagreements we have. We listen carefully. We don't, he's going to say it in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, we don't insist on our own way. We hear each other out. We don't have to agree, but we have to find a way to be together in love. In my younger years, I always wanted to be prettier, smarter, richer. I've finally come to realize that I can't do anything about those, and they don't really matter anyhow. What really counts is something I can do something about, and that's realizing God's incredible love for you and for me. I can try to live that out and be a more loving person. Knowledge puffs up. It's love. It's love that counts. Maybe the Beatles had it right after all. Maybe love is all you need. All you need is love. Hallelujah. Amen.
Please be seated. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, so now we get to the fun stuff. So the way this is going to work, we have 3 people who are going to come up and speak, but I'm going to go first for just a few seconds. Margaret, come on up here as well. We'll just have everybody come on up. So when I want to tell 2 quick stories about why I'm going to get choked up. Who's surprised? So why I'm thankful for Nancy's ministry. Oh, thank you. I keep these in the pulpit now. Her pastoral care never ends. So when I was searching for a new call, when we were getting ready to leave Texas and to come up here, one of the things you do when you're in the search process is once you're having interviews with congregations, they have references that they've put on their job description, and then you call them up and you talk to them and see, what they say about the church, and try to get past all the nice, fluffy language about, oh yes, you should obviously come here, this is the best church in the entire world, which we all know is true, but I didn't know that at that point yet, so I had to figure it out. And I was talking to the folks at the Presbyterian about sort of the reputation of the congregation within the Presbyterian, things like that, and one of the things that was unique about coming here was that normally when you go from someone who's been installed as a pastor for as long as Nancy was, for 19 years, and then before you bring in the next long-term, hopefully long-term pastor, wink, wink, you have an interim period, right? So there's an interim pastor that comes in and sort of makes things ready for the next long-term pastor, sort of deals with any, things that might have festered below the surface for a long time, or make sure that sort of the ground is ripe for the new pastor to come in. But they didn't do that, and that is sort of a red flag, right? You're like, why are they not doing this? Why is the Presbyterian not making them do this? And it's because when I was having conversations with them, that the Presbyterian already believed that this church was healthy enough that it didn't need one, which doesn't happen. The Presbyterians do not allow that kind of thing in the history of our denomination. It's becoming a little bit more common, but for the longest time, that was unquestioned, it was out of the question. So the fact that Nancy was able to be here for as long as she was, and then create a culture and a community that was already prepared for the next pastor, whoever that was going to be, just speaks to her capabilities as a pastor. Speaks to her capabilities as a pastor and her leadership skills, which are incredible, as we all know. And the second story is once I got here, Nancy and I had a month or 3 weeks or something like that where we were both technically here at the same time on staff, going and visiting people. She went through the whole directory with me and gave me all the juicy details about everybody. I probably wasn't supposed to say that out loud, but I did. And that was just a huge gift. It was a gift to me. Hopefully it was a gift to you all as well, that she would take the time to do that when I know she was ready to retire, when she had other responsibilities with Joe. And so to take that time, again, was a gift. And so thank you for being the pastor that you are, and for leading this congregation for so long. Just so you know, I'm only the 10th installed pastor in the history of this congregation, which means Nancy was the 9th installed pastor, which means there's a history of long pastorships in this church, and Nancy is a testament to, and you are all a testament as to why that can be the case. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to invite Margaret to come up and say a few words.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, so we all know Nancy, the pastor. But before Nancy was a pastor, she was a social worker. Social workers help people in need. She's definitely that. She's a helper and an advocate. I can't tell you the countless number of times that Nancy would call me to help somebody. Most of you probably didn't even know I was a social worker before Nancy made it public. So there's 10 traits of a good social worker. I'm going to list them, but don't worry, I'm not going to go through each one of them. One, they have to be empathetic. The characteristic most important of a social worker is their empathy. Crisis and emotional distress. Understanding. And as we all know, again, there were countless number of people that Nancy had at the manse. Her, Joe, the cats, and everybody else that came along that needed a place to stay. They're patient, something I'm not, but Nancy is for the most part.
My kids would disagree.
She's dependable. Trust is the key, and Nancy, people go to talk to Nancy, and I know pastors are supposed to be trustworthy. You're supposed to be able to pour your heart out to them. But with Nancy, going to talk to Nancy was easy. She's organized, as we all know. She always writes out her sermon so you can follow along. She's perceptive, she's objective, she's persistent, she's flexible. She doesn't always say no, but she knows how to set limits if she needs to. She's resilient. And this, again, Jonathan mentioned, one of the reasons that hastened Nancy's retirement because of her caring for Joe. And you could see that. You could see her resiliency. She's driven. So today, Nancy, as we honor you, the pastor and the social worker, for the good work and the impact that you've had on countless lives. Thank you.
My name's Bill. I'm speaking as the clerk of session here. Some of you may not be familiar with the Presbyterian Church, so very briefly, the church board or council is called the session, and the clerk of the session is actually the secretary of that board. The clerk must attend all meetings of the session, but has no vote and no voice. I don't get to vote for or against any action. I can't even suggest or speak for any motion, decision, or resolution. As clerk, secretary, though it's my duty to communicate verbally or in writing the decisions of the session, and that's what I'm called upon to do today. I told you all of that because I want you to know that I feel there's something missing in this resolution or announcement. You see, if I had to use only 2 words to describe Nancy, I'd make sure loving was one. Not only does that word describe her, but all who she has led, worked with, or even met are more loving after that experience. The second word that really should be there is stubborn. Nancy is the most stubborn I'm sorry, Director. Nancy is one of the most stubborn people I have ever known. It sounds like a bad word, but stubbornly insisting that fair, good, Christ-like acts be done, it's a good thing. But I digress. My job is to read this proclamation, even though those two words, loving and stubborn, are missing. Let me finish. In grateful recognition, Reverend Dr. Nancy Timothy, Pastor Emerita, in honor of your 19 years of devoted leadership, compassionate guidance, and inspirational service to the First Presbyterian Church of Lansdowne, by order of the session of the First Presbyterian Church of Lansdowne, presented with heartfelt gratitude this 28th day of January in the year of our Lord 2024, signed by the pastor and the clerk of session.
So, my recollection of my 19 years with Pastor Nancy is mostly geared towards mission work and the work of the church. She taught me one important thing, and I think that all of us learned this during her tenure, was that it is so much better to give than receive. And I will take that in my heart forever. We have had the best of times together, going on mission trips. We've gone on, 5 mission trips together, along with getting food poisoning in Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina, sleeping in bunk beds, taking children to West Virginia. Why we ever did that, I don't know.
We were young and crazy.
I know, we were young and crazy, and just the amount of work that this church did for the community and for the world. We actually raised money to purchase 11 arks, 11 of $5,000 each under Pastor Nancy's guidance, which is unbelievable. And I can honestly say, as I look out amongst you, every single person in the church participated in some type of mission project because we were led by somebody whose mission was her primary goal. It was to help our neighbors, it was to help the people in Pennsylvania and the United States, and help the people globally. And I thank you for that, instilling that in me and in our children, because I think we all got it, that we are so blessed, and it is our charge to go out there and help others. So thank you. To say that we love you, Pastor Nancy. We miss you. We are in good hands with Pastor Jonathan. You brought us Pastor Jonathan and Allison. You couldn't have given us a better gift. Thank you. So we do have a little something for Pastor Nancy. And this is from all of us. So that Pastor Jonathan. So it's the big unveil. You can. So there is Reverend Dr. Nancy Timothy's plaque for the First Presbyterian Church of Lansdowne. So I can stand there with you for eternity. I'm going to read this for everyone, just so they know. This was compiled by everybody, and this is Pastor Nancy's favorite passage. So, yes. Okay. A dedicated servant of the Lord who cared for her flock with every cell of her being. Persistent in even the most dire situations, she was an advocate for giving voice to the voiceless. Loved by all creatures, she treated God's creation with kindness and compassion. Her dedication to our spiritual wellness created an atmosphere that made us want to explore our faith. We express our gratitude to her for caring for us physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Nothing in all creation can ever separate us from God's love from us in Jesus Christ our Lord.
So this will always remain in the First Presbyterian Church of Lansdowne.
I'm speechless, and that doesn't happen often. Please sit down. That doesn't mean I'll be long, I promise. I couldn't have done it without you. I mean, I get the plaque, I get the credit, but you all did the work. You were the ones who, I just basically stood behind you and loved you, and you did it all. You did it all. I've told this story so many times. What Jonathan may or may not know is in the 10 years before I got here, there were 8 different pastors. It wasn't going well, let's say. And I think I figured out pretty quickly what was wrong. You were looking for a super intellectual, super smart, super intelligent pastor. Because I could sign doctor in front of my name, you thought you had me. No way! Intelligent, smart, none of that. That just didn't work. But you were looking for the wrong thing. As soon as I got here, it didn't take me long at all to know you just wanted somebody to love you. And I love you. That's all it took. Thank you for letting me love you for 19 years. Thank you.
All right, so we will continue this celebration in Westminster Hall after the worship service, which we're almost done with. I think the next thing is the offering. Oh, and Carmela's got one more thing, okay.
Commission chair I am.
Oh, yes.
So, let's not forget, at the luncheon, we are going to be taking up a special collection for heifer, which is one of Nancy's favorite missions, and we're going to do another ARC for Pastor Nancy. So if you would like to donate to Heifer International at the luncheon, we'd love to have your money. Thanks.
Let us pray. With gratitude for God's faithfulness and with thanksgiving for all that we have received, let us bring our gifts to God.
Good morning. We're going to do for you an item in the Dan language. It's called Kwazopo. Kwazopo means let us always be thankful to God for He sent His only begotten Son to die on the cross of Calvary for us. Thank you. Kwazopo, kwa hallelujah, zopo. Kwazopo. Kwazopo, kwa Jesus nando zopo. Kwazopo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Matauso, agibatuka sasuna yeka kwa sonya umba. Yelu yelo nando oko yenue. Kwazopo. Kwazopo, kwa hallelujah, zopo. Zopo. Kwazopo, kwa Jesus nando zopo. Kwazopo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Matauso, abibaguka sasune ye kakwason ya ngumba yelu yelo nandu koyenu kwazopo kwazopo kwa Jesus nandu zopo kwazopo kwazopo kwa Mary Bunya zopo kwazopo hallelujah hallelujah matauzo abibatuka sasune ye kakwason ya ngumba yelu yelo nandu koyenu kwazopo ao kwazopo ao kwazopo kwa hallelujah zopo kwazopo kwazopo kwa hallelujah zopo kwazopo hallelujah hallelujah mazauzo abibaguka sasune ye kakwason ya ngumba yelu yelo nandu koyenu kwazopo kwazopo
Let us pray. O God, with faith and hope, we offer these gifts. Use them, even as you use us, to accomplish your purposes in Jesus Christ, the head of the church and the Lord of our lives. Amen. Our final hymn is number 281, Guide Me, O Great Jehovah.
say it again, best thing I ever did for this church was to get Jason Knoll to you. Jason, I miss you. You are incredible. One final word. You finally got it right. You finally got it right. You have smart and intellectual and loving Jonathan. And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you. May God be gracious to you and all whom you love this day and forevermore. Amen.